sensing this danger. This is the greatest showman! He is floating on air now! He's going to send it back.
It's the Multicultural AFL Footy Show with Vanessa Harbir and George Grossios.
Hello and welcome back to the NEMBC's Multicultural AFL Footy Show. I am Vanessa, and on tonight's panel we have Harbir and George. Hello guys.
Hello Vanessa.
Hi Vanessa, how are you?
Good, thank you. This week there were some big scores, thrillers and some tight matches. And they all started with Friday night football from the MCG, when Geelong put the grand final ghost to rest after beating Richmond by 63 points and to rub salt into the wound. On Saturday night, the Tigers stars Daniel Rioli and Shea Bolton were involved in a nightclub altercation, resulting in Bolton requiring surgery on his broken wrist, which will sideline him for up to 3 weeks. As for Daniel Rioli, he will have to face disciplinary action. In a fiery game for Metricon, where 6 players were reported, St.Kilda got the better of the Gold Coast Suns by 9 points. GW Giants, in a thriller, managed to hang on for a 2-point win against Essendon, while Collywood got their second win of the year by 3 goals at the expense of North Melbourne. Port Adelaide completely dominated the Adelaide Crows by 49 points, and Melbourne, on shaky ground, just managed to beat an injury-depleted Swans side by 9 points. Sunday, West Coast at the MCG took the game away from Hawthorn by 38 points, and the Western Bulldogs came from behind in a thriller to just beat Carlton by 16 points. Brisbane at the Gabba beat a sore and sorry Fremantle by 4 goals. Your thoughts, Harbir, on the last weekend?
Well, I believe the way Geelong has come along, they've put a big bark on this season. That they the reason they got Jeremy Cameron was mainly they want to win the premiership, and I think they are headed in the right direction with Isaac Smith following his fate. And then there was like no issue with the team which we saw on that day, because whether it's a defense or the midfield or the forward, and Dangerfield wasn't part of that. So Tom Hawkins is getting that much of a sport, and then he can do much more than just kicking goals, which he did in that game. And Jeremy Cameron, like, he comes in, Isaac Smith, he does his job, and there's like too many headaches for the other team at the moment. Stewart at the back, and the job he did at Dusty Martin was fantastic. So all in all, a great mark on the game, and I think they are probably one of the favourites at the moment to win the premiership at this stage, the way they played that day.
Yeah, that victory, Harbir, certainly put them in premiership calculations. Their forward line is called the three-headed monster. You have Gary Rowan, Tom Hawkins, and of course Jeremy Cameron. Probably played his best game for the Cats since crossing over, kicked 6 goals. Gary Rowan had the third best defender and took full advantage of that, kicking 5 goals. So when those 3 forwards are at their best, it's going to be very difficult for opponents to measure up against them. So the Tigers, a very disappointing performance. They were battered and bruised by the end of it, and they have some tough matches coming up. They had more injuries with Shane Edwards. He's going to join, obviously, Dylan Grimes and Dion Prestia out of the team, and, of course, Trent Cotchin. And if we look at off the field, that disappointing incident that you mentioned, Vanessa, where Shea Bolton was involved in a nightclub incident with Rioli.
Yes.
So just more bad news that the Richmond Footy Club can do without at the moment. They want to be able to concentrate on on-field matters. The injuries are mounting, and they have some problems with getting their game going. They've been inconsistent.
I think injuries taking their toll at the moment. I think Grimes might be back, but they're going to miss Shea Bolton, especially after that mark that he took and the other things that he did around the ground.
That was awesome.
That
was a great mark, and it inspired Richmond. They had a good first half.
Amazing.
Definitely. But that's it. In the end, Geelong were just too strong. And I think the other sort of game, which was St. Kilda, I think St. Kilda, they're slowly starting to find their feet as well. I think that was a good win. It was a very fiery contest. And as you mentioned, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be probably getting the sanctions, and God knows what happens with them. But I think Paddy Ryder, the way he's come into the team, and especially the last quarter, that the way he played, I think that's it's hard to believe, but I think that's probably what St. Kilda was missing in the first games. I think they missed him too much, and I think now everything is sort of fallen in place for them. Although it might be too early to say because there's still a long season ahead, but things are sort of falling in place. I think they might do a much better job in the coming games.
He's been a huge inclusion, and if you pardon the pun, it's not just his size. He teams up really, really well with Rowan Marshall, so being able to have those two players in the team has been a great advantage for the Saints. Their victory was full of character. At times they looked down and out, and they're now slowly getting their game back together. They had a very good win against my pathetic team, Hawthorn, the week before. So they're slowly getting their game going. It's good for the Saints to get those players back. They've had some injuries early on in the season, but that win was full of character because I thought Gold Coast really served it up to them, and they got out to just under a 3-goal lead at one point, Gold Coast, and I thought they're in trouble now, the Saints, but they dug deep, they showed character, and in the end they had a good win. So hopefully that just propels them going forward.
Yeah, definitely. And Hawks, like, they're not really having a good season. They gave the
West Coast Eagles,
the West Coast their first win on the road.
Well, the Hawks, they have some serious problems. A frightening stat that I heard on radio, Harbir, was they've only won 4 out of their last 21 games, which is a terrible statistic. I know the Hawks are rebuilding, but I don't see a lot there at the moment to inspire me for the rest of the season. Sure, when we look at some of their young kids, they're just not coming on as quickly as what the Hawks would have hoped. I know CJ gives the Hawks some optimism, but I don't see enough kids around him where Hawk fans, Hawthorn supporters would say, we can be a serious contender in years to come. So some serious questions for the Hawks to face. But certainly take nothing away from the West Coast Eagles. It was a good routine win, and
first win on the road for them. I think that's
a good effort.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the stat that you mentioned, you can mention with other teams, but when you mention that with the Hawks and Alistair Clarkson still there, it sort of gives you an indication that it's a big thing. It's not like just any other team. So it's Hawks we are talking about. So let's see how the season sort of comes along. As we all say that anything's possible in the footy season, but let's see how it pans out in the coming games. And I think on the other hand, I would say Bulldogs, I think the way they played, they sort of found their mojo a little bit back towards the end. Although you don't expect that with Bulldogs sometimes, like as we saw against Richmond, they when the other team sort of put pressure on, so they were down and they couldn't really come back. So in that sense, it was a very good win. And Carlton, the way, I mean, their forwards did very well. Like we saw Magic Eddie Betts. He's just fantastic. He's a magical guy in the AFL at the moment. The goals he can kick, I think probably others can just dream of. That's it. So it was good entertainment as far as Eddie Betts was concerned. But then I think there are a few factors everyone is saying with Carlton, like they had their Cripps and other good players, Saad, everyone sitting on the bench for too long when they should have been out. And then the fact that Luke Beveridge was with the team and he wanted to win desperately, and then I think that's probably what motivated the team to come from behind and then win the game. Well,
there was a 7-minute period at the beginning of the third quarter, Harbir, where Paddy Cripps was on the bench, Adam Saad was on the bench. Now, they're two key players for the Blues, but to their credit, they got out to a 27-point lead towards the end of the third quarter, and then your Bulldogs just got on a roll. They got the momentum, they kicked 8 straight goals, and the Blues just found another way to lose a game that they really should have won. So there'll be a lot of frustration at Princes Park. And credit to the Bulldogs, they found a way to win. They dug deep.
Yeah, I think Giants, they are managing to hang on in the few games. I think that's pretty good for them. But what Jeremy Finlayson did, I think that was unwarranted. He shouldn't have done that with the team going that good.
No, we don't want to see violence on the field. There was no, as you said, there was no reason for him to put the elbow out. He could have tackled, he could have bumped. So a disappointing act.
Yeah,
very undisciplined, but take nothing away from GWS winning a very, very close encounter. Essendon kicked 5 of the 6 goals in the last quarter, lost by 2 points. They can take a lot of encouragement out of that. Not quite the 4 points. They would be disappointed to lose by a narrow margin, but there are promising signs out at Bomberland.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Melbourne, they are responding to anything that's coming in their way, and they're doing so well at the moment. Few teams have put pressure on them. Richmond did, and at Sydney, that was a good game too. But they are somehow managing to get the win out of every situation at this moment. They're flying high at the moment.
Yeah, honourable loss to the Sydney Swans. It would have been tough for them to come to the MCG to take on a very, very confident, talented Melbourne side. Melbourne would be breathing a sigh of relief that they got through that match, and their golden run continues. 8 straight, which we haven't seen for close to 60, 70 years.
Yeah, definitely. And there was nothing in the Port Adelaide and Adelaide game. We saw that anyway. We were expecting that kind of a result anyways. I think there's not much to say on that game. That's what we're expecting, and that's what happened.
Showdown 49, Harbir. So actually, Port Adelaide with that win have edged ahead. They've won 25 out of those 49 matches. So it was really important for them to win after a disappointing loss the week before in Brisbane. So back to winning ways, and the players would have got some confidence out of a nice winning margin.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with the prison bar saga as well. They've started like a new rivalry.
More off-field problems. Their players wore, of course, the prison bar Guernsey in the change rooms after the match. I don't think the AFL would have liked that, and certainly Eddie Maguire didn't like that whatsoever.
Yeah. And Collywood and North Melbourne, I think, good for Collywood to do that, but against North Melbourne, I don't think it sort of encourages them in many ways.
Oh, they're just happy for a win, Harbir, and a great performance by Jordan De Goey, kicking 6 goals. Yeah,
definitely back to winning ways.
Thank you, guys. The panel will be back on the other side of this break. Stay tuned. Back again, starting from tomorrow night from Marvel Stadium, St. Kilda take on Geelong and their awesome forward line. On Saturday, Sydney hosts Collingwood from the SCG, and Hawthorn played North Melbourne at Launceston, Tasmania. George, what are your thoughts?
Well, looking at the St. Kilda-Geelong match, I would expect Geelong to continue with their great form. We've spoken already about their awesome forward line, but let's take nothing away from their defence as well. They have Lockie Henderson, who's playing some fantastic football. He's had a great 2 years, actually, and he's ably assisted by Tom Stewart and Zach Tui running out of the back line with his great long kicking. Geelong have shown if they can play really quick, high-tempo football rather than putting the ball sideways, skirting the boundary line, they are a fantastic team. So Scott needs to get his players playing that really quick, high-tempo football, which exposed Richmond the week before. St Kilda will find it very, very difficult to counter that kind of style of play.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, and that's what's going to be the case as well. I think the thing that you mentioned, that the slowness of the game, they got rid of that against Richmond, and I think St Kilda thrive on that kind of fast pace. Let's see if they can sort of match up. To me, Geelong's going to have a comfortable win. And Sydney versus Collywood, again, probably a match which is what seems to be a one-sided one, with Sydney playing at their home against Collywood, who not really having a good season at the moment, and with all the injuries and all those things which are happening at Collywood, which we discussed in the previous programs as well, like on-field, off-field things. It was a good win for them against North Melbourne, but I don't see them coming and winning against the likes of Sydney at the moment.
So you didn't rate their performance against North Melbourne, Harbir?
Yeah, well, you can't really set standard for a North Melbourne game, because at the moment they are acting as a percentage booster for some teams. Their performance is really low. I mean, they're building, but yeah, and I don't think that will be a good barometer to judge teams if you've beaten North Melbourne.
Yeah, I would expect Sydney to be too strong at home. They have a good record there, and they've got a good blend of young players and the veterans. Hopefully Heaney will be back, but with Franklin in the team as well, and a very confident Tom Papley, it all adds up to a solid Sydney win, I would expect. And in the other game, Hawthorn versus North Melbourne in Tasmania. Well, the Hawks, we've already spoken about how disappointing they've been. here's an opportunity for North Melbourne to actually win their first game of the season. They were okay in parts against Collingwood the week before, so they will really fancy their chances against Hawthorn. We know Hawthorn have a great record in Tasmania.
Yeah.
That's what Hawthorn will be banking on to get the points over North Melbourne, the fact that they know how to play, know how to structure up, and hopefully on the day they can actually win the game, because their record has been terrible over the last year and a bit overall.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Hawks, I think they will come on the top for me. The way they've played this season, and also there's one thing which North Melbourne need to vary off is, say at some point of a game, they are ahead of the Hawks, but make no mistake, Hawthorn are very good this year, especially at coming back, whatever the difference is in the goals, and they are pretty good at coming back this year. So I think it's going to be Hawks for me. North Melbourne, they can put up a good show because it's sort of it's in Tasmania, and they should put up a little bit of extra show for them, for the people. But I believe Hawks are going to come on top in this game.
If they don't win, Harbir, I can't see when and where North Melbourne will win.
Yeah, that part too. But I think still Hawks going to come out strong for me.
Thank you, guys. We'll return with more previews after a break. You are with the Multicultural AFL Footy Show. Gold Coast play Brisbane from the Queensland Derby at Metricon. Richmond take on the GWS Giants at Marvel, and the big one, Port Adelaide, play the Western Bulldogs in Adelaide. On Sunday, Essendon clash with Fremantle from Marvel Stadium, and Melbourne take on Carlton in what promises to be a very tight game. To round off the fixture this week, West Coast from Optus take on the Adelaide Crows. What do you make of those games, George?
Well, starting off with Gold Coast versus Brisbane, the Queensland Derby, I would expect Brisbane to win that. They've been the dominant side in Queensland in recent years, and they're slowly getting their season to the levels we predicted. A difficult beginning to their season, having some tough away trips, and of course that controversial match against Geelong a few weeks ago. But since then they've managed to recover, and they love playing up at Metricon. They've got a good record there. So Gold Coast, they won't be denied. They had a good performance from most of the match against St Kilda last week. They'd be ruling some skill errors and some lapses in concentration. They're slowly building towards being a top 8 contender. But on this particular occasion, I think Brisbane will be too steady and too talented over the 4 quarters and too consistent. So I don't know how you see it, Harbir.
No, I totally agree. I think Brisbane, the way they played against Fremantle as well, they seem to find their rhythm as well. And Charlie Cameron, he's back. He's kicking goals. Lockie Neal, I thought they might miss him too much, but now McCluggage has come up and he's taken that spot, and everyone is like Danaher at the front as well, and everyone is sort of like getting their feet. So I think Brisbane is going to be too strong for Gold Coast. And the other game, Richmond versus Giants. Look, I would have still gone for Richmond if they didn't have those off-field issues that they had. I think now GWS Giants have got a very good chance of beating the Richmond team at the moment. So I think GWS Giants would come on top in this game, although it's at Marvel, and I think it's probably not to advantage to anyone. We can say. So I think GWS Giants will win this one. Yeah,
look, Richmond will be looking to put aside those off-field distractions and get back to winning ways. As we discussed earlier in the show, their form has been very inconsistent, and one thing that will concern them, when they've lost matches, they've lost by huge margins, and that's something that we're not accustomed to seeing from Richmond. So they'll be looking to bounce back with a vengeance.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Richmond, they've got a good depth, but I think not in this one. And Port Adelaide versus Bulldogs. You said rightly, I think it's going to be a very good game, especially with Scott Lycett out. I think they will probably have that advantage in the ruck. But
they get Tim English back, Harbir.
Yeah, they probably get Tim English back as well. So I think it's going to be a very interesting scenario. There's another controversy sort of coming up at Bulldogs with Riley West's dad saying that...
Scott West, an ex-legend of the club, putting out that tweet about the poor treatment of his son Riley.
Yeah, his son.
He seems to believe he should be getting more game time. Do you
Yeah.
think that's a fair comment?
Yeah, look, when you have given Luke Beveridge, you can say that he's got the command at the moment. So I just believe him at this stage. He hasn't done too bad this time. So I let him work it out. He took the players out. He took people in. He's won the game for you against Carlton.
He's a premiership coach.
He's a
so-
premiership
Let him
coach
be
as
the
well.
coach, yeah?
So I mean, the emotions do come up, and then don't get me wrong, Luke Beveridge has made few decisions which might not be sort of swallowed by everyone. But then again, he's got a job to do, and he's probably doing whatever to his ability, and he's proving it right. So let's see what happens in the coming game. And Essendon versus Fremantle, I think this is probably a good chance for Essendon to come back. They've had so many close games. They've shown a lot of talent. They've shown a lot of resilience. They've shown a lot of talent as well. But it is just that the little bit they are lacking, which is not letting them go over the line.
Yeah, look, I like some of their young players. Parrish is one of the veterans now in career best form. Kyle Langford got them back into the contest, kicking that goal with about 20 seconds. To make it a really thrilling finale to the match against GWS. So they have some talented players. They've shown throughout stages this season that they're worthy of a place in the 8, that they can really cause some damage if they get their game going. So Fremantle, they're still trying to play with some consistency away from home, but I do think that against Essendon, they will come up short.
Yeah, definitely. And with the Melbourne versus Carlton, I think Melbourne has been winning all the games so far. And they are, as we talked about before as well, that whatever is thrown to them, they are finding answers to that, be it any pressure from the team, or it's just like a shaky games, as you mentioned at your start. So they are coming on the top. And I think Carlton, I hope they can.
They're getting closer, Bia.
Yeah.
They're getting close.
They're getting there. Yep.
They're getting there, but I think with Melbourne, I think they're a bit too strong. So we might have a good game because the loss they had, they might get some motivations from somewhere. But I think Melbourne, it's hard to predict against them at this stage.
Yeah, Melbourne have played really well at the MCG this season, and of course they go into this match undefeated. They had that tough match the week before against the Sydney Swans. So they're winning in tough circumstances. They're showing that they are resilient, and they're showing some great fortitude and commitment. So expect another solid win by
And now
Melbourne.
they have Ben Brown too, as part of the team who makes them stronger.
The good thing is he's gelling well with the team. And the last game, West Coast versus Adelaide, I don't think there's much in it. For me, it's going to be West Coast easy game at Optus.
So you don't give Adelaide any chance whatsoever?
Not at Optus Stadium, nah. Not at all.
No.
No, look, Adelaide started off quite well, but in recent weeks, their performances have tailed off. I think their young players are finding it a little bit difficult at the moment, trying to back up week after week and have that consistency. So it might be time for the coaching panel to rest some of the players and bring in some other players and give them an opportunity.
Yep.
The NEMBC Multicultural AFL Footy team will broadcast on radio the St.Kilda Geelong game in Arabic on Friday night from the Marvel Stadium. Check your AFL app live and listen to the broadcast. And that brings me to my footy tip selections, and this week I'm going for Geelong, Sydney, Hawthorn, Brisbane, Richmond, Bulldogs, Fremantle, Melbourne and West Coast. That's all we have time for this week. You can also watch us in Adelaide on Channel 44 Friday evenings, on Aurora Foxtel TV at midnight Saturdays, and on the NEMBC YouTube. You are listening to this podcast on the Community Radio Network, and the AFL Diversity Language News can be heard on national multicultural radio stations. I am Vanessa Gatica.
I'm Harbir Singh.
And I'm George Gracios.
Thank you, and see you next week.